A very warm welcome to DVR, sir. Since 2000 until joining ISB in 2016, DVR, sir, taught in various IMs, particularly at Bangalore, Ahmedabad, and more recently at Udaipur since 2012. For 15 years prior to 2000, he worked in a variety of companies, public sector, family business, and entrepreneurial startups, the last 10 of them as CEO. Spanning a variety of industries, petroleum, refining and petrochemicals, bulk drugs, active pharmaceutical ingredients, precision manufacturing, and software. We welcome you, sir, on this show, and the podium is all yours. Please enlighten us with all the great information that we can have. Thank you, sir. Sir, your mic is on mute, sir.
Yeah, may I know how many people are logged in and what's your name, young man?
My name is Ankur, sir. So on this current session that you're watching on Zoom, only the host and the OBS team will be there. The rest of the people are joining at the back end of Hubilo. So the people are already watching on Hubilo, sir.
So how many would be there?
Sir, 2,500 plus people.
Okay, so
yeah.
Let me just try to get my PowerPoint shared. Are you able to see the slideshow?
Yes, I can see the first slide that says leadership.
Okay, you're not able to see the other slides, right?
Yes, I can see the other slides as well. The marked one is leadership.
No, the others on the side you can see?
Yes, definitely I can see, sir.
How do I mute those?
Sir, so you have to go to the slideshow. You can see on the top row, slideshow is there. Yes, next to after draw design. The top second row, if you can see, sir.
Is that better now?
It will work, sir. It will work.
You can see the next slide also or no?
Yes, I can see the next slide as well.
But I want to stop that.
End slideshow just after that, sir.
Maybe now you cannot see, I hope.
Now I can see just only one slide.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Okay. Okay, friends, very good evening to you all. I'm DVR Seshadri, and I would like to walk you through for the next about 70 minutes on leadership, what lessons I've learned, not only from my career, but also by reading various literature and so on. And I hope it will be of interest to all of you. The way we have structured is that we shall have a Q&A after I finish my presentation. I'll try to finish the presentation by 6:15. That's okay, my host? Is it okay? 6:15? Okay, so Ankur, can you confirm that I'm audible? Somebody from Tycon. Hello. Yeah, am I audible? Can't hear you.
Hear me now? Am I audible, sir?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, perfectly audible, sir. Perfectly audible.
Okay, so I did say that we'll go till 6:15 on the talk, and last 15 minutes, 6:15 to 6:30 will be Q&A.
Okay, sir. Not an issue.
Okay, I think we go on till 6:30 and I'll close by 6:30 sharp.
Sure. Okay, sir.
Okay, friends, let me walk you through this. One of the first questions that will come to your mind is what's the difference between a leader and a manager? Because many of you may say, hey, I'm a manager in some company, I'm called a finance manager in a startup or in a large company, or whatever else it is. And then we are talking of leadership. So I think it's important before we move forward to understand the difference between manager and leader. So I'll pause for 30 seconds and let you write down on a piece of paper what all you can come across as the difference between these two, manager and leader. A few bullet points would be good. I don't think this platform allows us too much interaction, but it will help to do some introspection on your own. Who is a manager and who is a leader? Okay, I hope you have done some introspection. So let me just take you through this and fast forward. A manager is concerned with goals and objectives. If you're a manager in a company, you have goals, you have objectives, and the leader is essentially anchored on vision. That doesn't mean he doesn't have goals and objectives, but over and above the goals and objectives, there is a overarching vision. The manager is concerned with honesty. What I mean by this is if you've gone on a travel, let's say Delhi to Hyderabad for some work, and then you have to settle your bills. You're pretty honest that I've taken an auto rickshaw from Hyderabad airport to some place, my cousin's house. I didn't stay in a hotel, so you don't claim the hotel expenses. That's all honesty, and you're expected to manifest that. If not, sooner or later, the system will catch and people will be in deep trouble. Integrity is a very different ball game. It means that there is no gap between what you think, what you say, and what you speak. Uh, the the platform on which integrity takes a huge beating is in political leadership across the world and in India. You have very few high integrity leaders, but in a company situation you are expected to manifest very high integrity. Otherwise, you just can't be a leader of any worthwhile reputation. So once again, what is integrity? No gap between what you think, what you say, and what you do, and all of it is for the benefit of the larger good. The next is a manager is concerned with priorities. You go to work on Monday morning, you have a laundry list of stuff to do by the end of the week. You have to make your priorities and keep ticking them off. Otherwise, you'll be in deep trouble. A leader is concerned with values, instilling values, first defining what are the values important to him and the organization, and making sure that those are imbibed. The manager is concerned with plans and strategies. He has some goals. So, what are the plans? How does he get there? And so on. Leadership is actually a state of mind. The manager is concerned with get me more resources, get me more, office space, get me more computers, and so on. Whereas the leader is concerned with giving. The manager is concerned with managing people's mind. It says, I'm the boss, you're my subordinate, bloody well listen to me. Whereas the leader is concerned with managing people's energy and heart, and one might even extend it to soul. Then the manager is concerned with a sense of team and organization structure, whereas the leader is concerned with organization culture and sense of community. The manager, if he has a few subordinates and they goof up, then there is error correction. You call them up, give them a piece of your mouth and say, Ainda ye nahi sahan karunga and all. Whereas the leader basically operates from acknowledgement. People have their own pluses and minuses. Let me leverage the positives and make sure that the negatives are taken care in some other way by maybe having other employees taking care of it or whatever. And then the manager is problem solving, decision making. There's something unique about a leader, which is called presence. So I'll let you internalize this very important difference between a manager and a leader. If you like, you can just make a question or two and then flag it in the end. Just scribble it on your notepad or in chat box or whatever. And in the end, I can take the questions. But this is very important. And you can see that there are two different things. The next question is, can manager be a leader? It's possible if you manifest the leadership qualities we have highlighted here. Will a leader also be a manager? Sure, to go into a leadership position, he must have already mastered all the manager's skills. Otherwise, he would not have been chosen for the leadership role anyways. Okay. So this was about the leadership of individuals. And now we are saying what is leadership of an organization. So at one level, all organizations are different. You have public sector, private sector, for-profit, not-for-profit, manufacturing, service, and so on. But they are not different. Organizations are not different to deliver what is called world-class excellence. So this is the world-class excellence ke liye core values. You have to deliver consistently. That's the job of the leader. to ensure that the organization delivers visionary leadership, then customer-driven excellence. So the whole focus of the organization is on customer, and what do we do to make sure we deliver day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute excellence to the customer. And that then the next one is organizational and personal learning. Are you sort of complacent saying, "Pahunch gaya Mount Everest, abhi kuch aage, I'm the best"? Or do you have enough humility to say, "Okay, we have reached one peak, but there are many more peaks to climb," and therefore the whole thing is about continuous learning and upping the bar. The next is valuing employees and partners. This is very important. Some organizations say, "Oh, we focus on the customer," but they treat the employees as dirt or treat their partners as dirt. Another is agility. How agile are you in today's world, which is called the VUCA world? Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity characterize the world today. So agility is very important. Otherwise, you get stuck. Like, for example, so many organizations which have just been great at one time, but now bitten the dust. Hindustan Motors, the one that makes ambassador cars, Hindustan Teleprinters, Indian Telephones, and then Nokia. All these companies were once great, but somewhere Kodak failed to have adequate agility. Then focus on the future. While you're focusing intensely on the present and performance for this year, this next year, and so on, do you have your eyes somebody in the leadership for the next 10, 20 years? Then managing for innovation, and then management by fact, not opinions and feelings, but fact. What do the data say? Corporate responsibility and citizenship, focus on results and creating value. So there is a very good saying, if you have a paper and pencil, you can note down. Promises are promises, excuses are excuses, only performance is reality. So that is what we mean, focus on results and creating value. Creating value for all stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders in an organization? Customers, employees, suppliers and partners, the society at large, and finally the shareholders. So too much emphasis on shareholders is not going to help. You have to keep your eyes on all the stakeholders. Includes the shareholders. But a lot of organizations make a mistake of just focusing obsessively on the shareholder. Shareholder is one of the many stakeholders. So we are talking about creating value for all stakeholders and a system-wide perspective, which means big picture. I might be making fancy cars and dumping them into the market. And then it's such a, I keep raking in profits. But if those cars are polluting, creating a mess for the citizens of the country, there is a problem. That is where it lacks system perspective. Or if I am devising some equipment which uses huge amount of water, when I could have actually designed it better, or huge amount of electricity, both of which are scarce, or not adequate attention to safety, those would violate the system's perspective. So these are the 11 pillars for business excellence for any organization. A visionary leadership. If leadership doesn't have vision, it is going to die very soon. It's a matter of years, days, months. Customer-driven excellence. So everything is oriented on what do we need to deliver value to the customer. Organization and personal learning. So is the organization a learning organization or somebody who is arrogant and complacent and say that main pahunch gaya? Valuing employees and partners, then agility, focus on the future, managing for innovation, then managing by fact, not opinions. So Mr. N.R. Narayanmurthy of Infosys used to tell in the early days, keep your opinions outside the door and come in with let the numbers speak. Then social responsibility and citizenship, focus on results and creating value and systems perspective. If you have any questions on any part of the talk that I'm giving, please write down and flag it in the end. This is another important thing for those of you who are entrepreneurs or part of entrepreneurial startups or even large organizations like Max or Fortis. Doesn't matter. The continuum of reverence that people manifest in organizations goes from extreme left, which is uncivilized organizations. And then as you move to the next stage, it is politeness. People are polite with each other. Those start, that begins the civilized organizations. Then there is caring for each other. Then there is true respect for each other. And the last is reverence, where the CEO or the top leaders literally communicate through their actions, through their talk, that we revere you, we are grateful to you, we are honored that you are part of our company. They do that to all the stakeholders, that is, employees, customers, partners, and so on. So, shareholders included, suppliers, and to the society for allowing the organization to function smoothly in the society. So that's an extreme right, the reverence. So you have to ask yourself, where on the spectrum are you? Uncivilized organizations treat their employees, as I said, like dirt. And then as the organization, as you start moving on this continuum, it transitions through politeness, caring, respect, and reverence. Okay, this is a virtuous cycle of leadership. It all starts with determination. The leader says, "Ye karna hai." We have to make, for example, if you take the country's perspective, we should introduce bullet trains. Now people will crib craw and say, "Are logon ko bhuke mar rahe hain, what is the need for bullet train?" But the political leadership at the highest level, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a bhakta of Mr. Modi, nor a hater. He occupies a position and I look at what he does. So determination, or if you see the national highways, I don't know if you're watching, I'm sure have experienced, but they've really, really transformed. Today, the long queues that you find in the toll gates are all gone because of that fast tag. And yesterday, Mr. Gadkari announced that in future, even the toll nakas will be taken out and all the billing will be done through GPS. That means you just drive through. Aapko pata bhi nahi chalega. It will just, you drive on the highway like anywhere else. At the toll naka, there will be a GPS signal to deduct some money from some account. Finished. So that is again determination. Then mustering resources. In both these cases, in bullet train, the prime minister had to get what do you call the Japanese people. And the bullet train people here, the political opponents are saying kyo. But China has literally hundreds of bullet trains flying, and they are flying up and down. And right now they have put one new bullet train from Arunachal Pradesh border of India to Lhasa in Tibet. That's going to start, I think, next month or something like that. But they have hundreds of bullet trains for that vast country. So anyway, we have to muster resources, whether it is financial, land, competencies, then technology, and so on. Then you achieve some result. For example, in this case, Bombay, Ahmedabad, and then you get confidence. Arey, ye kar sakte hain. So why don't we do it for Delhi, Chennai, or Calcutta, Bombay? So that is self-confidence. And then the aspiration to do more happens. And then again determination. So that's the virtuous cycle by which it grows and grows and grows into an unstoppable machine. And that's what the leadership is expected to deliver, the virtuous cycle for organizational excellence. Okay, the next one is we talked about manager and the leader. And let's look at the manager. What do the managers do? First thing is they manage organization or part of an organization. For example, you're a HR manager, or you're a manager for finance, or you are a manager for operations. You have some 5 chelas reporting to you. You can't just say, "Hey, I'll promote you because you're from my village or my college." Somewhere you will be seen as a very, partial, and what is that word called? Um, Parochial, nepotistic manager. So you have to use a mindset called analytical mindset. Each of the subordinates, you give them goals at the beginning of the year, give them key result areas, key performance indicators, monitor them on a monthly or quarterly basis, give feedback, give opportunity to improve, and so on. So that is all analytical mindset. If you're a finance manager and you are having surplus funds in the company, 40 crores, you can't just say, "Mere bhai ek finance company chala raha hai, chit fund jaisa, I'll park it there." That would be a disaster. You have to do some risk analysis, which are the high yielding returns. Maybe 50% I put in that, but the risk is more. Whereas there are other low yielding government bonds, I'll put in that about 20%, but the risk is less. So some sort of a portfolio. All that is analytical mindset. The next one is you have to manage people, and that requires a collaborative mindset. And then you have to manage change. Change is a constant, and that there you cannot, as a manager, sit and brood and say, "Arey, kya ho raha hai?" You have to get into an action mode. So it requires an action mindset. And then the manager has to manage the context. For example, managing in Mohali, where many of you might be based, or Punjab, is it same as managing in Sri Lanka or in Bangladesh or Pakistan or Chennai or Germany or Saudi Arabia? The answer is no. Each geography presents a different context, and therefore it requires a worldly mindset. Or another context could be the markets are saturated, there is no growth option. What do I do there to keep surging ahead? Whereas there might be another context that there is a huge upswing in the markets and it's growing at a rapid breakneck speed. So what do I do there? So that requires a worldly mindset to tune into the context. The next is managers manage themselves. They have to manage, before managing others, they have to manage themselves, and that requires a reflective mindset. So these are the 5 minds of the manager. To manage organizations, you have to have what is called an analytical mindset. To manage people, you need collaborative mindset, whether subordinates, peers, superiors, partners, suppliers. It requires collaborative mindset. To manage change, you need action mindset. To manage the context, you need a worldly mindset. And to manage yourself, you have to reflect once in a while, and that is called a reflective mindset. Okay, then we ask, what is the definition of a leader? We already saw the difference between manager and leader, but this is the most elegant definition of a leader that I have come across. And this is by a book by a gentleman called Lieutenant General Chibber. He wrote a book on leadership, Lieutenant General Chibber. So, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you're a leader. Utna hi hai, so simple. So, this red boat you can see here is the leader, the others are followers. And why is he a leader? Basically, it doesn't mean that you have to be called a CEO or a chief of operations or CEO. Nothing is required. You can be a simple engineer and still be a leader. What is the basic litmus test? Your action should inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, become more. Then you're a leader. Okay, I'll pause here for you to just take a breath and then think of any questions before I go forward. Okay, now we saw what the 5 minds of the manager are. Likewise, the leader is supposed to also have 5 dimensions of leadership. First one is thought leadership. For example, Dalmia Cements. Cement is a very, very polluting industry. But the top management of Dalmia said, why can't we make cement manufacture a clean industry? So, and also help in global climate change mitigation. So not only they invested huge money and a lot of effort and cleaned up the cement manufacturing in their own company to make it more ecologically sustainable, they also said, having done it, why don't we act as a inspiration for other cement companies to also follow suit? So today in the All India Cement body, they are evangelizing that humne kiya, ab bhi karo. And not that they are satisfied with what they have done. They're going to say, aage kya hai? So that is thought leadership. If you look at Mr. Modi, thought leadership that Swachh Bharat, who would have thought that it is even possible where we treat our house as a neat and pristine place and everything outside the house is a garbage can for most of us. From there to change the mindset requires a thought leadership that yes, India can be as clean as Germany or US, no problem. Then there is strategic leadership. Fine, we want to create Swachh Bharat. Uske liye kya karna hai? 1.3 billion people, 10 people per toilet. So we need 0.13 billion toilets, that is 130 million toilets. But then पैसा नहीं है, उसके लिए क्या करें? That requires you to bring in the entrepreneurial leadership. You have less resources, but you need to achieve the goals. That is where you start thinking like an entrepreneur. And then you have to motivate and inspire thousands of people. That is people leadership. Even cleaning up Ganga would be such a thing. Why can't we have Ganga as pure as what it is when it leaves the Gangotri or Yamunotri? Why should it be so polluted by the time it starts reaching Kanpur or Calcutta? So then there is a strategic leadership. How do we do it? We tie up with Israel or whoever are masters in this technology. We mobilize resources through some public-private partnership. That is entrepreneurial mindset. Then motivate tens of thousands of people, government, karmachari and others, and the private sector to come together and say, "Ye karenge." And finally, they have to lead themselves. So these are the 5 dimensions of leadership. Like we saw 5 minds of a manager. Here on the leadership also, there are 5, but as you can see, they are very different. Okay. And then one might say, what are the prerequisites for a leader? And anybody 30, 40 years back, they would have said you need to be very intelligent. But around early 90s, uh, Daniel Goleman came up with this idea that intelligence, raw intelligence alone is not enough. You need to also be emotionally intelligent. That is called EQ, emotional quotient. And then came the 2008 when a lot of good companies just went belly up and bankrupt. And what was failing there is that they had great leaders, but they did not have a strong spiritual quotient, SQ. And so these 3 are the 3 pillars, if you like. And of course, I've shown by the relative sizes, IQ, everybody who is in a leadership position and was reached there will have some decent amount of intelligence. He has to work on developing his emotional intelligence, but leaders are also expected to manifest a very, very high level of spiritual intelligence. And this is becoming a center stage issue today. A lot of leaders, otherwise competent, have really messed up their organizations because of low SQ. Okay, so unfortunately, much of our education focuses only on IQ, our schooling system. Some of you would have children, some of you would have just come out of colleges and so on. A lot of it is focused only on 1 or 2 parts of the components of intelligence. There are 8 intelligences required for a balanced way of a human to have intelligence or manifest intelligence. One is linguistic, ability with words, writing, speech, and so on. The second is logical, mathematical. The third is spatial, what you might find in sculptors or architects. And then the guy who created the Baha'i temple in Delhi, that's a masterpiece. So that is all spatial intelligence. Then Lata Mangeshkar or A.R. Rahman, musical intelligence. Naturalist intelligence, people who are fighting for the ecology, the rights of tigers or rights of wildlife, they're all naturalist intelligence. And then body kinesthetic, anything to do with the body and how you use it creatively. Gymnasts would be examples, dancers would be examples, people who are celebrities in the dramatics would be examples. Body kinesthetic. Then interpersonal is the intelligence to deal with others, and intrapersonal is how do I deal with myself. And you will all agree with me, sadly, the schooling system is focused only on the first 2 and doesn't give too much importance, at least in India, to the others. The new education policy is supposed to focus on those 6 also. But at least the generation I have been in, and probably your generation, a lot of the focus of creating this IQ was just on 2 dimensions. So in some sense, we have become very, very underdeveloped and not a holistic development of our intelligence, of IQ. So IQ we all understand, and a lot of the exams that we go through, logical, mathematical puzzles, quickly solve some 100 problems in 1 hour, what you might be giving for CAT exam or joint entrance exam for engineering colleges, or GRE, GMAT, all logical, mathematical, and to some extent linguistic. Now let us go into EQ. This is an example of a terror 26/11, when the terrorists came and bombed out the Taj Hotel. A lot of people lost their lives. You also know that 300 Tata employees, none of them, although they knew the escape routes and so on, left the hotel. They ensured that all the guests were escorted out, and then only they moved out. In the process, even the general manager got killed in that shootout. And of course, there are a lot of case studies written about what's so incredible about Tata Group. I guarantee you that very few business houses of that scale in India would really have employees who manifest that type of commitment. कि हमारा जान भी जाए परवाह नहीं, but our guests should be safe. And almost once the dust had settled, the chairman went there. He visited all the houses of the bereaved families, consoled them, and told them, look, the future of your family is our responsibility. So that requires a lot of emotional intelligence, where you expand your heart out beyond I, me, and myself to there is others who also are equally important. Then this is like the founder of the Tata Group, not founder, previous chairman before Mr. Ratan Tata. Founder was J.N. Tata. So this man is highly revered. So is Mr. J.N. Tata, the founder. In I think 1907 is when they started the Tata Group, maybe a few years before. So money is like manure, it stinks when you pile it and grows when you spread it. And that has been the overarching philosophy of Tata Group, and that's why it is such a respected group worldwide. And basically, what they say is we are duty bound to return to society a lot more than what we take from it. And that's why they put tremendous amount of importance on social responsibility and many other things. And then here is Mr. Satya Nadella, again an epitome of EQ. And he has written a beautiful book called Hit Refresh. I would encourage each of you to read it if you have not already read. Empathy, as we have learnt, was invisible and was a universal value. We had learned that empathy is essential to deal with problems everywhere, whether at Microsoft or at home, here in the US or globally. That's also a mindset, a culture. Why are we bringing this empathy into the center stage, or Mr. J.R.D. Tata or Mr. Ratan Tata? All these are exemplars of extraordinary emotional intelligence. Of course, Mr. Satya Nadella had a son whose picture you see here, who right from birth was practically not able to lead a normal life. And that taught him tremendous empathy. And after he took over as chairman of Microsoft, or CEO, he brought empathy into the center stage of Microsoft. He redefined the purpose of Microsoft to enable every human being on the planet to reach their full potential. And all his initiatives are essentially centered around this word empathy. And of course, in the several years that he has been the CEO, the market cap or the value of the company has increased by more than, I think, now 7 or 8 times, from $200 billion to more than $1.6 billion. So that is the power of a great leadership. And when we talk of EQ, we have to look at, this is all from Daniel Goleman, the gentleman who brought this into the center stage. And he put EQ into 4 buckets: self awareness. How aware am I of myself? How good am I to manage myself? Then my social skills and social awareness. So the self awareness is emotional awareness, accurate self assessment. Do I know that I'm good at this? I'm not so good at this. And whatever I'm not good at, I should not pretend I'm good at. I should get somebody in my team who can buffer that. That is partly the reason for the extraordinary success of Infosys. Right when they founded Mr. N.R. Narayan Murthy, he realized that he was good at certain things, vision, big picture, leadership, but he was not so strong in HR. So he brought in another colleague from Patni Computers, Mr. N.S. Raghavan, for HR. Then he brought in somebody else called Mr. Dinesh for quality. Then for operations, he brought in Mr. Chris Gopal Krishnan and Sibulal. Then for marketing, he brought Mr. Nandan Nilekani. This is all coming from accurate self-assessment. For finance, initially there was somebody else, but then he brought Mr. Mohandas Pai. And these are gurus in their respective functions. Of course, they also turned out to be great leaders in their own right. Then the self-awareness, also adequate self-confidence. You can't be a leader with a high EQ if you lack self-confidence. Then self-management, self-control. I want to abuse somebody, gali dena hai because that fellow goofed up on a delivery or something. But self-control is to say, to understand that is not going to be useful. Let me just find a way to chill out, maybe go for a walk and come back. And then tone down my response and not pulverize that person. Self-management is also trustworthiness. When you say something, do people trust you, or they say aise hi khali kota baat karte hain? This is the problem with many of our politicians. Election time, they're saying so many things. Then after that, they're not even reachable. Then conscientiousness. All of you have manifested conscientiousness to be on this talk. It was told 5 o'clock, and at 5, all of you had assembled. And so did I, and so did the organizers. Conscientiousness means kuch karna hai to karenge, no excuses. Then adaptability. If the world has changed, I am not rigid and fixated, I am adaptable. Earlier we brought in for the organization a quality called agility. Then achievement orientation. The leader should be able to raise the bar up, up, up. Otherwise the organization can go into complacency. And then ability to take initiatives. Not say, अरे कोई बता नहीं so मैं ऐसे ही बैठूंगा आराम से. Initiative you have to drive and galvanize the organization. The next is social skills, visionary leadership, ability to influence others, then developing others, communication skills, being a change catalyst, not preserving the status quo. A leader is supposed to change things. Then ability to do conflict management, building bonds with different stakeholders, then teamwork and collaboration. Then social awareness. Social awareness is ability to have empathy. We talked about it in the context of Satya Nadella ji. Then organizational awareness. What is the games going on here? And how do I make sure that vicious politics doesn't stifle progress moving forward? What you're seeing in Maharashtra today, nothing much is happening. It was once a glorious state, but today it is all totally stifled. And there's so much vicious politics. So what we mean to say is, as a leader, you have to be aware kya chal raha hai, and find ways to neutralize some of the negative energy draining interactions, people, and so on. And then service orientation. So at the end of the day, the leader is first a servant. So there's a huge body of knowledge called servant leadership. So this is also very important, service orientation. Okay, then there are different types of leadership styles. There are 6 that Daniel Goleman has brought into the center stage. The first is what is called coercive leadership. And this you find very often, sadly too common. Do what I tell you. That's it. Don't ask questions. Authoritative leadership, also authoritarian leadership. Come with me. मैं जा रहा हूँ, मुझे मालूम है कहाँ जा रहा हूँ. Just walk with me. Don't ask questions. Democratic. What do you people think? What do you think? What do you think? Then pace setting. Do as I do and do it fast and now. Affiliative leadership. The leader is basically saying people come first. And coaching, where you're trying to develop the next generation of leaders. You're willing to say that even if they fail, I'm watching. It won't create a catastrophe for the organization, but I want to build a pipeline of leaders. So these are the 6 styles, and it is inappropriate to say, hey, I'm a coercive leader. Har sthiti mein main coercive leader hoon. That will be very dysfunctional. And therefore, there is a concept called situational leadership. What is the situation you are in? who is the person you're dealing with, and that will set the stage for what type of correct leadership. So if it's a very high performer who is a very, very sensitive fellow, you might like to use affiliative leadership. If somebody has leadership potential himself, you want to develop him by using a coaching style of leadership. Somebody else who doesn't take any initiative, you might use authoritative or coercive leadership. Okay, so this is the very different situations in which different leadership styles are used. Coercive is in a crisis to kickstart a turnaround. If the company is sinking very fast, the new leader has to come and turn it around. Uske liye coercive leadership. Authoritative leadership is when a new vision, clear direction is needed. That jo purana tha, it is not going to help. We need a new way of looking at things. That requires authoritative leadership. Then democratic, to build a buy-in, consensus, get inputs from valuable employees. To such high performers, if you use coercive leadership, it may backfire. They will say, Saleh Gade, who do you think we are? We don't need to take your stupid instructions. So there you need a democratic leadership. Then pace setting, to get quick results from highly motivated and competent teams. So you have a fantastic team and you need quick results. For example, in the context of corporates, Mr. Anand Mahendra, he's done extraordinary work in converting to electric cars and so on. That requires quick results, and that might require pace-setting leadership. So your team is all bunch of superstars, and getting them galvanized and saying, "Chalo, let's move forward." So another would be our Ajit Doval, our national security advisor. There are so many security risks to the country, but he himself keeps a very hectic pace, and he chooses very, very carefully his core team and delivers the results. We have not had any major loss of life or bomb scare or terrorism attacks in India. You can just imagine what type of intelligence machinery is running behind this whole thing. Mr. E. Sridharan of Delhi Metro, again, pace setting leadership. Affiliative, there are a lot of wounds in the team in the past because of the past leadership. You need to motivate them. That requires sort of signaling that people come first in affiliative leadership. So to heal rifts in a team, to motivate during stressful situations. And then there's a coaching leadership to help employees improve their performance or develop strengths and basically create a leadership pipeline. Okay, there are 6 factors, many of you would be in startups, that influence the culture of an organization. And sadly, once the culture is set, it is very, very difficult to change it. It requires sometimes even a new leader to come and shake up the old sleeping organization. So pay attention to this. Is your organization flexible enough, or are you so rigid saying मुझे सब पता है, कोई किसी से सुनने का जरूरत नहीं? The next is responsibility. Do people take responsibility for their actions? Are they willing to proactively jump in when something needs to be done? Or they say, Arey, kya, we can't take all this responsibility, shirking the responsibility. You find that in a lot of Sarkari organizations, that nobody wants to take responsibility. They're worried about CVC kya batayega and so on. Then high standards. Are your standards low or medium or high? And for creating a winning culture, you really have to set realistic high targets, not excessive high targets. That will create cynicism because you're not going to achieve it. Then rewards. What are the reward mechanisms for good performance? It need not be monetary. It can be recognition. It can be compensatory, 1 month leave to study something or whatever else it is. Then clarity. Does everybody know what they're supposed to do? Or is it a total mess with nobody knowing what is required to be done? And then commitment. Are people committed to the organization? Are their whole and soul in the organization to say, let's make it a success? Okay, I'm going to pause. We are almost come to more than about 2/3. So I just want to give you a breather. We are covering a lot of territory, but I hope it will be of some use because I'm planting all these essential seeds. So in your own companies, when you create culture, it's not that big a think that 100 different factors you have to take into account. Just focus on these six. Flexibility. If some new piece of information or evidence came, are you flexible or saying that नहीं नहीं 30 साल पहले का formula अभी भी काम करेगा? So then the ability of people to take responsibility and not pass on the buck and be just like postmen, that's not responsibility. Then standards. Are people willing to set high standards for themselves and their teams? Then mechanisms for reward and recognition. Clarity of what am I supposed to do? And then a very strong commitment to the organization. Yes, ये मेरा organization है. I might be an employee, but rather than 2 punch and 1 lunch mentality, सुबह एक बार punch करो, शाम को एक बार punch करो, बीच में एक lunch, फिर घर चले जाओ. That is not commitment. Commitment means whatever is required to be done, मैं करूँगा. Even if it is very, very inconvenient from a personal angle. Okay, the next one is the SQ. So we looked very briefly at IQ and said that unfortunately out of 8 pillars, our schooling system addresses only 2, which is linguistic and logical mathematical. It has totally ignored, what is it? Musical, body kinesthetic, then the ecological and so on. So that we saw in quite a lot of depth. Now we are going to SQ, spiritual quotient. Any questions before we transition out of the previous subject, please? EQ. Otherwise, you make your questions on a piece of paper and we'll pick it up. Okay, so this is what it is for a long time. And even in India, sadly, although India is a spiritual powerhouse and lighthouse to the world, the moment you bring spiritual in organization, people say, nahi, 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 wo to personal choice hai, we are a secular country, and so on. Arey bhaiya, all the religions in the world are essentially having a common platform of spirituality. That's at the core. The manifestations, pathways may be different based on geography, timelines, and so on. But that's where the Dalai Lama, the best example of high spiritual quotient, revered across the world. What is his statement? The time has come to find a way of thinking about spirituality and ethics beyond religion. Unfortunately, a lot of people think, "Arey, spirituality baat kiya to religion chalu ho gaya. He's going to convert me to a Christian or a Hindu or this or that." Whereas what Dalai Lama is saying is spirituality is the core of all of us. If that spiritual being within me disappears right this minute, I'll fall dead on the screen. So what is keeping me alive? What is keeping you alive? There is a spiritual spark within. Every religion has a different pathway and description of what that is. But keeping that aside, basically the Dalai Lama is saying spirituality is at the core of human or any existence. And therefore, we should not confuse it with religion. Because once religion comes into the picture and people say, my religion is better than the other, then it starts needlessly dividing. But spirituality is a uniting force bringing all religions together. Okay, this is Dr. Abdul Kalam. And just see how many times he has used the word higher power or God or his and so on. Each individual creature on this beautiful planet is created by God to fulfill a particular role. Whatever I have achieved in life is through his help, second time, and then an expression of his will, third time. He, fourth time, showered his grace, fifth time, on me through some outstanding teachers and colleagues. And when I pay my tributes to these fine persons, I am merely praising his glory. So 6 times he has referred to some higher power, call it God or whatever it is. This is another quote from his book. It's called, I think, Vision 2020 or Wings of Fire. All those rockets and missiles that are his work through a small person called Kalam. So, by the way, if he didn't do extraordinary work, India would not have been such a strong position with China and Pakistan. So a lot of the missiles, he was a mastermind behind it. So what he is saying is all these rockets and missiles are his work. His means Uparwala, through a small person called Kalam, in order to tell several millions of India to never feel small and helpless. We are all born with a divine fire within us. Our effort should be to give wings to this fire and fill the world with glow of its goodness. May God bless you. So this is as good as it gets. Again, he has used the word his work, his will, his power, divine fire, and so on. So these are all indications of a very high spiritual intelligence. Then we have Rani Ahalyabai Holkar. Those who are you from Madhya Pradesh, Indore area would know. She was the queen in the Malwa region, and she was actually widowed. Long story, she was daughter of a poor farmer married to a king because of her extraordinary devotion in temple. Soon after marriage, she found her husband was a drunkard and a drug addict and a loser. So it was a shock for her, but she turned around him. The king was pleased with her. He taught statescraft to her and her husband, that is the king's son. But pretty soon the king died, the husband died, the son died, and all who was left in the core family was Rani Ahalyabai Holkar. And what she did in those 30 years, it's golden period of Indian, I would say, monarchs or queens or kings, creating phenomenal strength through integrating different people through spiritual intelligence. So this is a poem written by a lady, Irish poet. For 30 years, her reign of peace, the land in blessing did increase. She was blessed by every tongue, by stern and gentle, old and young. Yes, even the children at their mother's feet are taught such homely rhyming to repeat. In later days, from Brahma came to rule our land a noble dame. Keen was her heart and bright her fame, and Ahalya was her honored name. So this is as good as it gets in terms of SQ. So we saw Abdul Kalam Sahab, we saw Dalai Lama, and now this lady, Rani Ahalyabai Holkar, all very high SQ. Earlier we saw Mr. Ratan Tata and JRD and then Satya Nadella for EQ, but surely they will also have very high SQ, and the people we are showcasing here would have had very high EQ. So this is another fantastic fellow. He was the partner of three people, started this company called Duty Free Shopping. Chuck Feeney is his name. And he sold off his shares and got 9 billion, B for Bombay, $1 billion. And what did he write? I would like my last check to bounce. So this is the shows extraordinary spiritual intelligence. Extraordinary. अरे इतना पैसा होने के बाद he says, my life ends when I keep writing checks and the last one has bounced. And true to what he said, he actually died without much personal money. All of it was gifted away to libraries in Vietnam, colleges in Philippines, and so on. And that's it. So he was incredibly happy giving away all his wealth while he was alive. So that shows incredible spiritual intelligence. Okay, so this is my favorite diagram. When things are going good, we say, I am the hero. The antenna is buried in the mud, as you can see here. And the higher power, which I have represented by word infinite, that is the spiritual part of our existence. So that infinite power says, "Aisa hai kya, bhaiya? Hum dikhate hain aapko." So then he starts raining some missiles. It could be loss of job, loss of money, loss of reputation, loss of a beloved one, loss of health. And then the antenna is still buried. This fellow is now crying. And then somebody advises him, yaar, antenna thoda saaf karke, tune it to the higher power. And you start getting single bar on this. You see this single bar, and the guy has become neutral from earlier frowny to a neutral demeanor. Okay, and then we have, as he further continues to connect with the higher power, the signal strength increases, he is happier. And then when he continuously is plugged into that 4G download, then it is totally ananda. And of course, the ultimate is discovering that infinite, not sitting somewhere far away, but designing that the culmination is realizing that that infinite power is not far away but within me, and that is happiness, by which you're 24 by 7 in a happy zone. So this is the journey of life for all of us. Some of you might be at a higher later stages, some earlier stages, but all of us have to pass through this royal highway from a full ego, 100% ego, to zero ego here. At this last level, there's no ego. So you go through intense suffering, then you go through some process by which you connect with the higher power, and then you finally find the higher power. आपके अंदर ही है, बाहर कहीं नहीं है. Any quick questions, friends? Okay, we have another 20 minutes. I'll close the talk and then we can have freewheeling questions. This is the journey of happiness for all of us. Okay, so how do you develop high SQ? This is coming from the Buddhist literature. Somebody, one of Buddha's, Gautam Buddha's chelas, long after he was enlightened, sat in a tree, under a tree in the evening twilight, and his chelas asked him, Guru, how have you reached such a high stage? You look always composed, no matter what the situation is around. And he said, that's not a fluke. I have been involved, I can vividly remember 547 past lives of mine. In one life, I was a beggar. In another, I was a king. In another, I was a tiger. In another, I was a monkey. In another, I was a merchant, like this. And in each life, I tried to improve my score on this 10 principles or 10 perfections. Imagine 0 to 10 on each of them. Generosity 0 to 10. You can do your own self-assessment. Kahan ho? 10 means highest level of generosity. 0 means miser. Then virtue and restraint. Usme 0 to 10. Aisa karke, you will get a score after self-evaluation on a 0 to 10 for each dimension. And that will tell you where you stand on the SQ. This is a simple way. And I think it requires not much of guessing. Gautam Buddha, when he was enlightened, had a score of 100 out of 100. That means 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 on each of these. And what are those 10 perfections? Generosity, virtue, and restraint. If I cannot restrain myself, then I lose. I'm no longer virtuous. You see some of the people who swindle money or rape women and so on. Where is the virtue there? This is all no restraint. Then renunciation, ability to let go. Then wisdom, ki kuch bhi, everything is changing in the world. So if I think I'm very smart and beautiful, in another 10 years I'll have dentures. So the wisdom is to understand sab badalne wala cheez hai. Then effort, ability to put intense effort. Then forbearance, that is basically ability to tolerate intense pain, discomfort. Then truthfulness and resolve. Ek baar तय किया, decided, no wavering. अरे ऐसा नहीं करना था. After completing, going on into a regret mode, ऐसा नहीं होता है. Before you come to a decision, you do a lot of deliberate thinking. But once you take a decision, you stay put to that. So that is resolve. Then loving kindness to the entire humanity, including animals. And then equanimity, perfect composure and calm, no matter what the situation is. Likewise, on another lens, if you put Patanjali's eightfold path of Ashtanga Yoga, there are 8 steps. Yama, which is basically the discipline in dealing with the world. Then Niyama, discipline in dealing with yourself. Then Asana, keeping your body fit. Pranayama, breath control that leads to mind control. If your breath is erratic, the mind is going all over the place. When the mind is calm, you might have experienced breath becomes calm. Or reverse, even when the breath is calm, the mind becomes calm. So that is pranayama. Pratyahara, ability to control your sense organs. Otherwise, the type of crimes that you see against women today, it's all horrendous. Day by day, it's becoming worse. And that is because people have lost their ability to control their sense organs. It could be also violence on the road, it could be overeating, it could be addictions of various sorts, including to movies, pornography, gambling, and so on. Then dharana is concentration, dhyana is meditation, and samadhi is merging with the infinite. What we said, what Abdul Kalam Sahab referred to as him, his power. All these rockets and missiles are a manifestation of his power. So that is merging. Our individual consciousness merges with the supreme consciousness. So anyway, what I'm going to do in the next 1 minute is to take you through yama and niyama, disciplined way of dealing with the world and disciplined way of dealing with yourself. And these are very, very, very important for spirituality, spiritual intelligence. So what is this yama, disciplined way of dealing with the world? Ahimsa, non-violence, not only in action, but in thought and in word. So I can be non-violent in thought. I can be very violent in thought. I can be very violent with the way I pulverize somebody by abusing him continuously and so on. So when we say ahimsa, it means non-violence in thought, word, and deed. Then satya is truth and honesty. Asteya is non-stealing, not taking others' idea and telling boss maine kiya, not taking others' properties or stealing other people's money or assets. Then brahmacharya is non-lust, not coveting other people, other women. Of course, you're married, you are, that is quite fine if you are married, but not going around and trying to, put a roving eye on every possible person of the opposite sex and creating havoc for yourself and the family. Then aparigraha is non-possessiveness. That's where you saw that Chuck Feeney, owner of $9 billion, and then he just gave it away with one simple statement: "I would like my last check to bounce." Then the next is disciplined way of dealing with yourself. By the way, all these are ways by which you can increase your spiritual intelligence by enhancing each of these. We saw the Buddhist philosophy, and now we are seeing the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. From there, two of the things we took, yama and niyama. So Shaucha is purity, then Santosha is contentment. By the way, Shaucha is purity not only of the body, which all of us try to bathe and wear new clothes, nice clothes, but purity of the mind also. That is the real Kachada Dabba. Then Santosha is contentment. Tapas is austerity. That is intense exertion towards the chosen goal. Then Swadhyaya, in the past it was study of sacred texts. Today's context, it means learning new skills and unlearning useless skills. And then Ishvara Pranidhana, this is what we saw in Abdul Kalam Saab's two passages. Living with an awareness of the divine. All these missiles and rockets are the work of a small man, manifested by his will or his desire, that is the Uparwala. So living continuously with the awareness that there is a divine presence which is driving me. And once that divine spark leaves me, I'll be as good as dead. So that is Ishvara Pranidhana. This sort of helps you to have a low ego. Otherwise you keep saying, "Main itna pehelwan hu," ahankar bad jata hai. So this is what it is, folks. Yama is non-violence in all forms. Satya is truth and honesty. Asteya is non-stealing. Brahmacharya is non-lust. Aparigraha, non-possessiveness. Non-stealing also of other people's ideas. If somebody has done a good work, give them the credit. Niyama is shaucha, purity of mind and body and surroundings. Santosha is contentment. Tapas is austerity. Swadhyaya, study of sacred texts. And Ishvara Pranidhana, that is living with an awareness of the divine. Okay, how are we on time? Actually, this is a good place to stop, but maybe I'll just do a small. There is also, when we talk of great leadership, we have to talk about bad leadership. And there are many, many, many ways in which people become bad leaders. There are two broad categories. One is called ineffective leader. मतलब उसकी बस की बात नहीं है. He is not supposed to be a leader, but somehow he is sat there. And having reached there, he doesn't even give up. He just makes life miserable for others. He doesn't self-evaluate, self-introspect, doesn't have reflection, which we said is leading yourself. And then he becomes a pain to himself and the organization and to others. That is ineffective leadership. And then there is unethical leadership. And each of these branches into multiple varieties. So ineffective is incompetent. He is not supposed to be there. Another way of ineffective leader is rigid leader. दूसरे का बात नहीं सुनता है. People are telling him the world is changed. We have to change. Like the Kodak leadership, rigid leadership. They developed the digital camera, digital photography, but the leadership at the top, the R&D people developed the digital photography. They presented to the top leadership. They were so rigid. They said, "नहीं नहीं वो photo film किसी भी हाल में नहीं जाएगा कहीं," and they became bankrupt. Intemperate is not ability, no, inability to control your sense organs, excessive drinks, excessive bodily indulgences, sex, and so on. Then unethical leadership is callous, that is indifferent to others' pain, then corrupt, which we all understand. How do I make more money from this leadership position? Insular is my group and others. I am from Andhra, so insular leader will say, I'll only promote Andhra people. Golimar others. So this is also a very sad reality in organizations. And once you have insular leaders, the meritocracy is compromised. But there are some great organizations where meritocracy is very, very high. I'm familiar with one called LV Prasad Eye Institute. It's the top eye institute in the world. And it is in Hyderabad. It operates in Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana. And there you will see leaders from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from Jamnagar to Silchar or wherever else it is, across all religions, across all socioeconomic strata. The faculty are drawn from everywhere, and they're only meritocracy, no question of insular leadership. And evil leader is what some of our politicians indulge in, create mayhem, bloodshed on people that they are supposed to govern, make people fight with each other, kill each other, and so on. So that is all evil leadership. So a lot of that you will find in political arena in India and everywhere in the world. So that's what it is. Let me skip the others. And that's it, friends. I like to end with this slide. Basically, on the top is happiness. In the bottom is you have to be true to your core values. Define what are your core values and be true to them. The 12 pillars, rise to your full potential. Don't compromise. Set your own measure of success. Don't go by what others are saying. Yaar, itna bada gaadi hona chahiye. This is a big mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make. They struggle, they bring it to some success. They also raise some venture capital money, and then they say, "Chalo yaar, abhi ash karenge." Needlessly, they go and buy some Mercedes car or even costlier, some fancy house, fancy office. This is all nonsense because they're playing into the hands of others who say, "Arey, success means you should have fancy car and home." Kuch nahi. You decide what is success and then move in that direction. That's what we mean. Set your own measurement of success. Giving rather than taking. We already saw that the leader is giving. And so rather than taking, which is the manager, which is getting, you're in a giving mode, whether it is advice, whether it is solace to somebody who is suffering, and so on. This phase also passes. Nothing is permanent. If I'm riding in a high wave, the wave is bound to come down. If I'm going very low in life, it's bound to rise. The only reality is the now. Future is non-existent, past is irrelevant, except for the lessons. And then attitude of gratitude. The fact that we are sitting on this Tycon call, we are amongst the most fortunate people on earth. How many people are suffering? Billions of people, no food, war zones, being bombed out overnight while sleeping. People in Baluchistan, for example, or those Muslims in China, what's that place called? Uyghur Muslims or something. Then Syria, and large parts of the strife-torn world, Ethiopia and so on. So we are amongst the most fortunate people. Then respond and not react. Reaction में ego बहुत जबरदस्त होता है. Respond में you keep the ego aside and say इस परिस्थिति में क्या करना है. Ego is not there in the foreground. Whatever happens is for the good. जो चल रहा है, we may not with our limited intelligence be able to grasp क्यों हो रहा है. But 10 years later you will say this disappointment had to happen. That is how I am here. The last shirt has no pockets. कफन में जेब नहीं होता है. Change and the world around you changes. Be the change you want to see. Don't wait for others to change, then say मैं तब change करूँगा when my wife starts smiling with me. अरे कुछ नहीं चाहिए. You be the change you want to see. The balance is balance between 5 aspects of our existence: our body, our mind, which is related to our professional growth, intellect, which discriminates between right and wrong, कुछ खोटा काम करना है, कुछ काला पैसा का धंधा करना है. The intellect says मत करो, फंस जाओगे. Then heart about relationships, and then the soul about your connection with your concept of God, that infinite symbol that I used. And what you know is a minuscule part of what exists. We think we know a lot, we know nothing. Nothing we know. We just, as a humanity for the last 100,000 years or whatever, we are only scratching the surface. बहुत कुछ गहरा गंभीर रहस्य है, and we will never know those. Why is it that these millions or billions of planetary bodies are there spinning at such precision? Why is it that this whole thing, if you look at it, the Earth revolves at 1,200 kilometers per hour on its own axis, and it goes at about 6,000 kilometers per hour on its orbit around the sun. Now, what is the mysterious force behind all this? Science can give some logic and arguments, but the truth will be always a mystery. So what we know is a minuscule part of what exists. Okay, friends, we are touching about 6:15, so let me stop here. And can the Tycon people please come and show their face so that I have a... Yeah, shall I take off the sharing of the screen? You're not audible, young man. Not audible.
So am I audible now?
Now it is okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, sir, thank you for this extraordinary session on leadership. The chat box literally got filled with the comments, and we have been flooded by lots of questions. Due to some constraints, we will be picking up top 5 questions. First question is from Dr. Madan Olak. He asks, could you please elaborate on the sense of community?
Okay. So, see, the leader, if I remember, in the manager we said sense of team and organization structure. So if I'm a manager in the Bank of Baroda, I will say मेरा team है, for example, Patiala branch of Bank of Baroda, 10 बंदे है branch में, that's my team. And then I am the chief manager or DGM or manager or deputy manager or assistant manager. So where am I in the pecking order? Accordingly, I calibrate my behavior. Sense of community is what leaders bring. That we are, firstly, this team that I have is a part of a larger organization. Maybe the leader is working with 5 next level people. That's a team. The manager generally is boxed into that small team. But then the leader is saying this organization has 5 lakh people. Like if you say TCS or Mahindra, maybe 2 lakh people. So that's a huge organization, and I have responsibility for all of them. Not only that, we have millions of customers. If you say Anand Mahindra and where he is looking at, they have families. They're using our products, let us say automobiles. So they have to be safe. They should be using clean fuels. They should not pollute the atmosphere, because the citizens of the country, millions of them, they will suffer if our vehicles are polluting. So, and then there is a community of shareholders. there are a whole bunch of people who are suppliers, their employees, their families. So now the community is practically the whole country. And your vision as a leader is to look at all of them and say, what am I doing to make sure that all their interests are taken care of? So the leader really is operating at a very, very high level, looking at this whole big picture. And that is what we call community. Not only it doesn't even restrict to India, let's say for theoretical reason, argument, Mr. Anand Mahindra is looking at Indian market only, which is not true. He's got global markets, but for discussion. Then he'll say, if my vehicles pollute, that global warming will cause climate change in far away Peru or in Nigeria. So what should I do? Because they are also part of my extended community. The people whom I don't even deal with, who are not my customers, not my employees, not my suppliers, kuch nahi hai. I don't even see them. I don't meet them. But they will be impacted by the actions of my organization. Whereas if you don't have that sense of community, and I'll give you a contrary example, this meat industry in USA is nowadays coming under a lot of scrutiny. They have these hogs, that is pigs, huge animals, and they are slaughtered. And a lot of these animals are factory farmed, and they have a lot of excreta. Apparently, the animals in the world excrete 8 times to 10 times more per day than human beings. What is being done with this excreta? There are no answers because there's so much of sewage coming out of these animals. So a lot of these factory farm companies, animal farming companies, they just take that excreta, make it into a sludge, and then just like a fountain, they leave it into the empty spaces. And people in 100-kilometer radius, if you look up in North Carolina, one state, nearly all that state has more pigs farming, that they call them hogs or pork, than the number of people in the state. The number of pigs is much more, and that whole state is so polluted. And unfortunately, a lot of that pollution is done in the black neighborhoods. Where is the sense of community to such a leader who is sitting there? He's looking at his profits, and he's saying, so I have to maximize the number of pigs, maximize the number of slaughters per day, and then package them and send them all over the world. Goli mar whatever pollution I'm doing. So there is no sense of community there. Okay, next question, please.
Yes, sir. So the next question is from Ankur Sharma. He asks that, sir, what if an idea given by a majority of my team is something that me as a leader disagree?
See, the only way as a leader you can do is, if the one is, you have to ask, is there truth in what the majority of the people are telling? In which case you have to have the humility to say, ठीक है, मैं कुछ गलती हो गया मेरे thinking में, and there is something that I have to correct myself. And you have enough humility to say, गलती हो गया, माफ करो, this is what we will do. I agree with what you people are saying. Or if he thinks that actually what they are missing out something, he has to communicate with them intensely. It may not be possible in a jumbo meeting of 100 people, one guy giving some bhashan. They won't be convinced. They may say, हाँ ठीक है, boss बता रहा है, but internally they won't be convinced. So he has to sit in small groups, individually and so on, work with them, and then come to the what is the truth. That is the only parameter, the truth, and go after that. What are the facts telling? Not my feeling, his feeling, my opinions, your opinions. वो सब भूल जाओ. That's why we said management by fact. For great organizations, the 11 pillars में, the leading organizations, which are called the ingredients for organizational excellence, we said one of the things is management by fact. So let the facts and data speak. So you have to persevere, and as a leader you have to spend a lot of time communicating with them, and not just pushing it down their throat, but saying kahan hai, sachai kahan hai. And if they are seeing some truth which you have missed, then you have the humility to say galti ho gaya, maaf karo, and let us go behind what you say. So in a nutshell, the way to address that is intense communication, a lot of effort in unraveling the truth, and then humility to accept if I'm wrong, that yeah, I'm also human, I miss this point, and so on.
Very
And
rightly said, sir.
sometimes you may say that let us together go and search for additional information, और कुछ market research करते हैं, जो भी. Let us ask some experts, क्या हो रहा है, and then learn collectively. Let us learn, and so on.
The next question is from Avdesh Sharma. He asks that what is the most important factor to improve on EQ, especially on self-improvement, because self-awareness always comes later after the event has occurred.
Yeah, that is why I would say that one is, if you're seriously interested in EQ, you go back to that diagram. By the way, I will share this presentation to the Tycon. They can give it to everybody. Right now, after this mail, there is some Harshit or somebody who has sent an invite. Unko main bhej dunga. Who is that person? Harshit, Harsha or somebody?
Harit,
Harit.
Harit Mohan. Right, sir.
I will email this to him.
Sure, sir.
And you share it with everybody. But there is that summary of Daniel Goleman's EQ, those 4 boxes: self-assessment, self-awareness, and social awareness, and empathy, or something like that. So you have to do a self-assessment on each of those things. There are so many components there. Like I told you in the case of that Buddhist perfections, 0 to 10 may. Empathy, how much do I have? For example, or the self-confidence, how much do I have on a 0 to 10 scale? And then find out what are the lacuna areas that you have, and work on them through a process of reflection. The other way is to have some mentors whom you can, who you go to, and then they have no axe to grind. They are selfless. They have been there, seen the world, and they can call a spade a spade. And they can tell you, Gade, aisa kar rahe ho, acha nahi hai. You have to have the humility to accept it and improve, and keep that mentor relationship very strong. That is another way. The third is role models. Look at who are the great role models who have huge EQ. For example, I gave you some names like Ratan Tata Sahab, or who's the other one? Mr. J.R.D. Tata. And then one more person I put there, I don't remember.